Unlike Alina, who did a great job, English is my primary language, although with my Southern, you guys may doubt that by the time I'm done with the presentation. So talk just for a moment about IoT and the connection between IoT and GIS. All of us here obviously have some affiliation with Esri, that's why we're here. So we're very familiar with GIS, we're familiar with the technology, we are familiar with how it impacts our industry, right, and our jobs every day. When it comes to IoT, I'd say that most of us have probably heard the term. Most of us probably have some definition of it. I would say a lot of us probably struggle, right, with how it actually impacts our business, how it can improve our business. And so what I want to do just for a moment is actually maybe give a definition of IoT and then show a few examples toward the end here of how, as we integrate IoT and GIS, I think you're going to start seeing the impact of how it could affect your businesses. So first, Internet of Things, right? It's a term been around for almost probably over 30 years now. So we call it emerging technology. It's been a slow emerging technology, right, if you really think about it. But what is IoT? Really, a simple definition of IoT is it's just physical devices, which could be anything as a house, right, a building, a car, smartphone, laptop, tablet, any of those devices, and they're with some sort of an infrastructure, a network that allows us to exchange information with those devices. That is a simple term. Of course, nowadays, right, you guys have seen things like the refrigerator was mentioned earlier that sends a picture to, right, me at the grocery store reminds me what I need to buy. So there's examples of IoT, there's things that are out there at a smaller scale, right? But I think the thing is interesting is as a company, we started getting into the industry several years ago, and the thing that kind of became apparent was there's these one-offs, there's little examples here and there, but it was really kind of hard to put your hand on a successful implementation at a commercial business, right, where it was actually working and it was part of the business and making decisions with it. And so I kind of joked and said, it's kind of like finding a Sasquatch, right, or the Loch Ness Monster, right? People talked about it, and there was a lot of believers in it, and there was a lot of information out there, but when you said, hey, I want to put my hand on one, you really couldn't find one, right? So it became interesting for us as a company moving in this space to say, well, hey, we need to learn more about it. And so like a lot of emerging technologies, it came down to a couple of challenges, right? One was the technology was still trying to get there, and of course the other was it was still kind of somewhat cost prohibitive, right? It was still a challenge to get into that industry. So what I want to do real quickly is touch on both of those points. So the first one is the technology side. Most of us are used to using outdoor technology, right? When it comes to GPS, I track my daughters, at least one of them. The other one refuses, she thinks she's too old for that. But I try to track my daughters, and that's a form of that, right? Where that device is communicating with my device, and it gives me statuses and location, that sort of stuff. So there's an example, right, of using that. But what happens to most of us is, if we're in the retail, construction, different industries here, right, real estate, it's an indoor business. And so what happens is as soon as the dot gets to the door, it's now a challenge, right? I'm trying to look at products and customers and things in that indoor space. And really that's where technology has been just vastly and sort of rapidly over the last 2 or 3 years advancing. And so the first thing is just to understand how that works, right? Outdoor technology, you guys all get it. I trilaterate off of a cell tower, or I trilaterate off of multiple satellites, and that allows me to pinpoint my smartphone or that device. And really just quickly to understand indoor technology is a piece of this, right? It's the same thing. So when I walk into a space, I can have Wi-Fi sensors, I can have Bluetooth beacons, and it works the same way. I'm getting a signal strength from 2 or 3 of those, and that allows me now to pinpoint that blue dot in that interior space. And so through this technology really advancing, right, the cost is coming down, technology getting there, I can now make that blue dot, seamlessly walk from an outdoor space into my indoor space. And so, we're going to see that change, right, as that cost comes. The other thing here, you see at the mention at the top is VLC. It's a new technology. So one of the things that's also a challenge for technologies trying to get in place, right, is it really stays kind of at a smaller level. And then eventually what happens with emerging technology is a big name, right, an Esri, a Microsoft, an IBM, a Google, somebody will start supporting that technology and now starts becoming mainstream. And we're seeing that in the IoT space, right? And one of those particular companies that I'm going to highlight here is Acuity. It's a company that we've been working with. And so what Acuity is doing is they're taking this technology and they're embedding it into their new LED lights. And so again, we're talking about breaking down the cost barrier and the technology challenge. Right, when I replace my lights, LED lights, they pay for themselves in roughly 2.5 to 3 years, just purely in energy savings. Right, now embedded in that, right, I have this capability of doing Bluetooth, right, and some Wi-Fi, but then also a new technology, which is called VLC, or visual light. That technology actually uses the pulse in the lights, right, and the camera on my device, and based on that, I can uniquely identify each light in the room. I know the positions of those lights, therefore I can now position my device. This is centimeter accuracy. So on some of the initial retail runs, right, it's 3 to 6 inch accuracy is maintained inside of a store. So again, as this technology, as you get these large organizations starting to support this, right, you see the adoption. The other thing that Acuity is doing we think is interesting is they're also working with an outdoor space. So we have GPS, right, and things at that macro level, but they're still sometimes at a micro level, right? So I'm in a parking garage, under a deck, somewhere GPS doesn't work or I can't quite get the accuracy. So they're also promoting things like outdoor lighting, which is a Wi-Fi technology, right? So with that, I can now do more micro. I can work in parking lots. I can do other things where the GPS wouldn't be sufficient. And one other technology here that I'm going to highlight and sort of go into some examples is one of the new things Acuity is doing is edge processing at the pole. You guys all familiar with edge processing? It's kind of the transition now from cloud, right? But what they're doing is taking a camera, a video camera at the street light, and with that video camera, I can actually do video processing at the street light and then pass metadata, right? Information only back to the device instead of actually passing video and storing video and analyzing video. So an example of that, right, is we have a recent project that we started with the city of Marietta. This is not that project, but an example of how that works. Right, and I also know that Acuity is working with, I think, Simon Properties and a few other properties out there around this as well. But the technology allows me to actually set up a camera, monitor pedestrians or vehicles. In this case, a vehicle pulls into a parking space. It now sends a vector information back that says lot number 2 is occupied, right? Parking lot number 3 is vacant. I can now send that to a citizen engagement app if I'm a city, or if I'm in the retail business or the mall business, I can now have a concierge app that as I'm traveling, it's going to show me real time where the closest parking space is. We can also do enforcement. That's one thing City of Marietta is looking at. Once a car pulls in, I stick a timer on that. After the car's been there for 2 hours, I send a notification to the patrol. They then come and drop a ticket on it, and we got obviously proof if we need to go back and look at that. So again, this is where the technology is moving. Other examples, right? We recently just finished up a proof of concept here, about to move into a project phase with a residential care facility. And we've got several of these that we're talking to. And so the idea here, right, of using that indoor technology, because now, right, we're using some of this capability, we're in a 2 and 3 foot range, in this case using some Bluetooth technology, allows me to now not only do patient tracking, but also allows me to start seeing patient to healthcare provider. Did the healthcare provider go in the room this morning and give them their medication at 8 o'clock? Did the patient go into the facility to eat lunch today, right? We can do controls on the locks of the doors, so if certain patients can get in the courtyard and some can't, we can control that based on an armband or other sensor that the patient is wearing. The other thing that we're looking at here for future development is actually doing a home login, right? So if I was to put my mother in a facility, I could literally log in at any point in time during the day and see where she's located and get a report of when the last time a healthcare person was in her room, right? Did she go to lunch? I can see all those same stats. So they're really interested in it, to be honest with you, from a lawsuit standpoint. There's been things in the past of patient-on-patient violence and other things. So this allows them to be able to have documentation. But then also when you're talking about, being able to separate yourself in the market, right? If I'm putting my mother-in-law's facilities, I'd much rather have a facility with this capability than some of the others. And so that's another example. Another one is real estate. You guys have all heard smart buildings, right? That's been around for a long time. Energy saving, space utilization. We go back to the tenant engagement. So just talking about, right, how I can log in and check on my mother. There's also this tenant engagement that says, hey, I want my tenants involved in the process of the building. So if there's something that goes wrong, there's something suspicious, there's something out, something needs maintenance, I literally have an app. They can click it, take a picture, whatever the case may be, and now they're engaged in maintaining that. Talked to an individual this week about construction management. So they're wanting us to look at, hey, when I do a construction project and I have a plumber coming in, an electrician coming in, I want an employee tag that I know when they're on site. So I know if he was there on Tuesday, how long he was there. And so literally I can look at invoicing and billing based on when they were on site or not just kind of have to take their word for when they were there. If something goes missing that day, who was on the property, et cetera. The other one is retail, right? So this is an example here of a retail store that's actually using the VLC technology I mentioned earlier, right? And what you see in there is a shopping cart enabled with a smartphone walking through the store, right? The first one you see there is the VLC technology, again, maintained about a 6-inch accuracy. The second you'll see is using Bluetooth. But the things we're looking at here from retail is an enabled shopper. You guys have probably heard that term, right? I'm a loyal customer. I got my app on my phone. I come in to get some kind of reward. But then also, right, the thing that's important to the retail owner itself, look at some of these stats, right, by client results and surveys of basket size increase in engagement, right, increase in probability of purchase. So these are all advantages to the retail. And then also look at things like customer assistance. So, hey, I'm shopping in the store. I come to a certain point in the store. I can't find a product on the shelf. I can push it and actually summon. Instead of going looking for somebody in the store to help me, I can push and summon someone over. They come over. Oh, let me check and see if we got some in the back. You can continue your shopping, right? They go and find it in inventory in the back. They literally have their device. They can find the shopper in the store and bring it to them. Also, customer insight. So if I got the loyalty program, I know everything about the shopper. Now I know every second where they are in the store. They look at something on the clearance rack. They look at something on sale, how long they stay here, and look, right? And so you can imagine the amount of data and analytics available with that. And then, of course, employee optimization. Are my employees where they're supposed to be, right? Are they not where they're supposed to be for employee management? And lastly, right, is manufacturing. I just heard the Exalta talking about a little bit about manufacturing. Manufacturing is a little bit of an early adopter of IoT, right? They do things like preventive maintenance. So how long's a certain machine been running? Where's the machine located? What's the conditions? And so if I'm looking at, maybe had to replace technology. But the other ones that we've been talking to a few recently is process and quality control. So when things slow down in the production, where does it slow down, right? If somebody misplaces raw material, we need to be able to find raw material, right? So the supply and demand, if we stumble on that, then it slows down the whole production line. So multiple examples of manufacturing. So really, in summary, right, I think the thing to talk about with IoT and GIS is this. IoT is a great technology. It helps us get the blue dot, right, in most cases from an outside into an interior. I think when you take that and combine that with GIS, which now allows us to do the analytics, which allows us to now do those spatial relationships inside the building, whether that's employees or patients or machinery or whatever the case may be. I think you see as you start combining these, right, you come up with a powerful technology, and one that we feel like in the next 6 months to a year, you'll really see start accelerating as companies like Acuity and others start supporting that, and the technology is becoming less and less of a challenge. Thank you. I appreciate your time.
So you've really proven that the Internet of Everywhere exists, right? And many of your examples might challenge people, this notion that we're being tracked, we're being watched. Street lights that are the video sensors, so they know what you're doing and ask a cop to come in and give you a parking ticket. There's a really beneficial side to this. So, right. What's it going to do for all these guys' businesses?
Yeah, well, I think, again, if you look at, right, each one of the industries we kind of started going through with the retail and real estate and different ones, again, I think the challenge historically, right, and even using GIS, which I've been doing for 25 years and love it, is a lot of times once we get in that indoor space, right, it's really kind of losing that location awareness. And so I can do modeling, I can do predictive, but it's hard to actually validate. It's hard to then go through and say we were correct or incorrect. So I think what you see is with this capability now combining the GIS capabilities interior and actually having that location awareness of product, patient, customer. Now I can literally start making that super intelligent, right? I can start looking at, hey, our validations are correct, or here's things where now we look back, it makes sense why this didn't work correctly.
So
or
your
that
questions that you ask, you can validate them in real time and all these other things.
Absolutely.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, appreciate it.